Hi, it's Anna. I'm a language coach, and maybe you have never heard about language coaching, and you will say, "What is a language coach even mean?" So, what I want today is to explain you a little bit the differences between language coaching and traditional English teaching models, because I want this channel to be a space to communicate what language coaching is, different tips from language coaching to acquire language, as you as a language coachee, very different from language learner. A language coachee, it's a different approach from language learner, and I want to know if maybe you are a language coachee and you didn't know that, or you're a language coach and you thought that you were an English traditional teacher. So I want this space to be a place to have conversation, to connect, and to discuss on language coaching and share experiences with other language coaches, because I also feel that language coaching, and at least like my method, it's very designed for Spanish native speaker professionals. So I also think that language coaching, there is not one unique method that is the right method. I think it has to do a lot with our own personal journeys through language and through really become bilingual and find the ways to become effective communicators and addressing the specific problems. For me, for example, in Spanish culture, what I went through, and also regarding, for example, the aspect of shame that in my culture is very prevalent, the shame about speaking in English for many Spanish native speakers. And I'm like a coach addressing this very issue. I understand better the problematic when I have to coach other Spanish native speakers, for example. So I want this to be a space for learning from each other, from understanding this perspective, and you maybe for also gaining and learning tips as a language coachee. So the main differences between traditional English teaching and language coaching, the first one would be that language coaching, we doesn't use textbooks because the priority in the coach is the element of purpose. So it's very important that the method is relevant and that the person really feels that is using the language, is using English for something greater, for learning about things that he or she is interested about. And also, for example, you can use English to learn valuable skills like emotional intelligence or like productivity and financial education. For example, in many of my programs in the debate club, we kind of discuss on different current issues that are happening in our society. What does it mean to become a bilingual? What does it mean, how things that are going on internationally can help us as Spanish native speakers, So it's a lot about relevance. I find the element of relevance very important because in my case as a Spanish native speaker learning English in Spain with a traditional teaching model, it was very artificial. It didn't feel relevant. I was reading books I was not really interested about because they didn't represent my life or what I was going through. So for the approach of language coaching, that in my method, it's the relevance is the key element. Finding the right materials, curating the right materials, creating an immersion that is relevant, that makes the person go through a journey of self-discovery. This is very important, the part of motivation. So this is the second element, very different. For the language coach, everything is about the motivation, and it's kind of a teamwork. The coach, the language coach, and the language coachee create this team. So of course, it's not only the job of the language coach, but it's very important to create the right habits, to sustain the right habits over time. And this is the idea with the language coaching aspect, we are going to think deep, the right system for you to create the right habits. When we have the right system, the right habits, and we automatize that habit, it's just a matter of compounding the habit over time. So these little changes in lifestyle over time make the whole difference. So it's about starting to listen to English a little every day, start to implement this habit a little every day in a way that feels relevant to you as a language coachee. That's how we keep the motivation going. It's all about meaning. We have to find meaning in the practice. So that's kind of a very important element. In the case of traditional English teaching models, the motivation is not as important. The only thing is the short-term goal, passing this test, taking this thing, whatever, something like a native speaker, whatever. But it's not about the person. It's not about the purpose of learning and loving the process of learning Also in language coaching, we understand that the most important thing is for you to develop the skills of how to learn English. So it's more important that you start to understand how to create a habit, that you start to understand how to develop the active listening skills, how to listen to the language instead of just focusing on this one accent or that. No, it's about the right listening skills for you to kind of be able to listen to a variety of English accents. That's the reality of the world. It's not one English, that's correct. There is a lot of different ways of speaking the language, so it's understanding all these things. So it's more important to develop the skills of how to learn the language so you can become independent. Eventually, the idea of going through a language coaching process is that you're going to become independent, an independent learner. In the case of traditional English teaching models, it's not from the perspective of you becoming independent, but you're more like passive, and normally you're gonna depend over time. Like what you do, you're gonna have to come back. You are losing your level all the time. In language coaching, as you create the right system from the very get-go, you are going to maintain and keep your level over the process of it. That's exactly in my experience. It's my case. Living in Spain, I have developed this system. I created this habit for myself, and then I can sustain it. So what I want with Boy Fluency is teaching you these tools, these coaching tools, so you can become independent and find a way of learning language that has meaning for you. And it's also a method that is very designed for professionals because it's all about developing the communication skills for you to become very effective, very confident communicator. And this is the other aspect that in the case of coaching is very important, that is handling, managing, processing the emotions. So the key thing is, why are you feeling what you feel? And understanding, breaking down that emotion so we can understand it. In the case of learning a language, shame, it's very prevalent because it's very much vulnerable. Learning a language is very vulnerable because we are talking about belonging here. We're talking about belonging to a community, belonging to a culture. So we have to address all of these things, find our own story, find our own voice and confidence speaking this new language. That's going to be also a part of identity for you. So that's all the different pieces of this journey, this beautiful journey towards your confidence as a speaker of the second language. So that's more or less for you to start getting to understand what is the difference between traditional English teaching and language coaching. And if language coaching is for you, if you're either a language coach or a language coachee, this is the place for us to have a conversation.